Did you know that our debt stands at 9 trillion, only 1 trillion shy of the 10 trillion cap that was set by Parliament last year in June 2022? And as we look at that, William Samoei Ruto has found himself, I think this time around I've got it right, he has found himself in the middle of a Cold War between China and America, as now they apportion blames into what is happening in Kenya. America has been our friend, development partner, and China has also been a strategic development partner to Africa and Kenya, to Kenya and Africa at large. Now, an international publication report claimed that China had given loans to African countries, including Kenya, totaling to 8 trillion between 2000, the year 2000 and 2020, making it a leading creditor. And suspiciously, that article emerged at the point Kenya is struggling with the cash crisis, pointing out to trying to link it to what the state officers are saying in the country, that they cannot meet their recurrent expenditure obligations because they've had to reroute budget to debt servicing. Nothing short of political rhetoric, but again, it's a matter of time. And I think I have seen now analysts asking that instead of having the talk, why don't you give us the figures, what you've paid and who has been paid, so that Kenyans can keep themselves, can be aware of what exactly is going on. According to that report, Kenya owed China 1.2 trillion, Angola 5.6, Ethiopia, and the rest accordingly. Now, central bank's statement was confirmed by David Ndei, President William Ruto's Council of Economic Advisors chairperson, who indicated that the country is grappling with the debt issues. But in the wake of this, as the UDA regime insists that they are paying debt and that's why they cannot meet their obligations, America is telling Kenya and is telling President William Ruto that the problem is China, because China is putting you into some debt traps in what is wrapped as development or meeting the African demand for development. Now, Africa is telling William, or rather the US is telling William Ruto, that the problem you are in is not because of any other reason, but because of the debt traps. Remember us in this country, and sometimes I believe that I've always not appreciated the Western or the Europe approach to how they handle African affairs. Me and you in this country understands very well that even the previous administrations have been working with debts. So it's not the first, it's not Uhuru 2 that started debts. Even Kibaki, Uhuru 1, and remember the Eurobond, one of the biggest scandals during Uhuru 1. The challenge has been about our expenditure. And number 2, pilferage. But even as, for example, now, the experts are asking why Kenya Kwanza administration is hiring 50 CAS and is really sending a bloated delegation for foreign trips. But the US and the Europe cannot question William Ruto on such grounds, but then they will take an escapist narrative about the China encroachment into the Kenyan space. It looks selfish and one that only serves the interest at the top, because the interest is how to kick China out of the equation. Now, in their response, they are saying, China is saying that we are not the source of debt trap for African countries, but a partner lifting them out of the poverty trap. China's response also followed comments from top US official who accused the country of trapping Kenya. China, however, dismissed the allegations, reaffirming the commitment to supporting African countries for economic and the social growth. Now, the debts become traps because of blunders that maybe we might have committed in our debt management. Let me remind you something. During last year's campaign, we covered that campaign. One of the most contentious issues that was highly discussed and canvassed across the political divide at the campaign trail was on the debt management, on how we were going to pay debts. I think Azimio la Umoja said they would negotiate for restructure these debts. But on the other side, Kenya Kwanza were like, we will increase our tax base, or actually they will improvise more on their taxation so that they can collect more resources locally and use our resources or the money they collected here to pay taxes instead of borrowing to pay. So there was that comparison between the two camps. So 8 months into Kenya Kwanza regime, we are actually finding ourselves in some sort of a frying pan because of blunders that, according to me, we committed. So, in the light of this Cold War between America and China, I would want to lift this conversation a bit and take it above the Kenyan space. Now, at the international stage, what are we getting wrong or what are we getting right as far as debt management is concerned, on how we're going to manage our debts? I want to link it up with our foreign policy. Do we have a stable foreign policy? I'm one person that is a bit convinced that some of these issues are also contributed by our relations at the international stage. Some of the few small blunders that we commit, and they're actually now costing us the Kenyan shilling and are now bringing us this crisis. Kenya Kwanza, the China is directly saying here that it's not about the loans that were being paid, because this report is coming at a time when the Kenyan government is saying we paid debts. We are paying debts, and that's why we can't pay salaries. Then China is saying, then US is saying, China is burdening you guys. In short, they're simply trying to discredit. Nothing has been done. Nothing has been done. And if you are keen, you'll realize that some of this loan yenye tunaambiwa, these ones that are maturing, would be from the West. I may be wrong on this, but do your own research. Those who can have the luxury of doing their own research, can you find out the loans that we are being told matured in March and the 150 billion that we paid? Can you find out which ones and they are from which countries? Most likely realize it could be the brittle institutions or the financial institutions from the West, the Euro bonds of our time. Now, there is what I want us to look at. What did Ruto get wrong at the international stage? Kindly subscribe to our channel. There is something I want to bring to your attention, and I know many have not paid attention to it. President William Ruto, and even when he was the deputy president, I think as a country, we've had an inconsistent position as far as the Russian war is concerned. Last year, of course, President Ruto has been a Russian person. I remember in 2020, that was during the COVID-19, the vaccination discussion was going on. He was highly blamed that he did not take the jab that was recommended by the state or what the Kenyan government had recommended to take, and instead he took one that was linked to Russia, allegedly came from Russia. Now, even currently in government, I once analyzed here that we have a deal to import trucks from Belarus there is a deal between Kenyan government and Belarus government, including some other intermediaries, financial intermediaries there. Even the local banks are included. And experts raised a red flag because Belarus is one of the countries that was actually sanctioned by the superpowers like the US. But then that Belarus is a sympathizer of Russia. So to some extent, we did not have a clear position because we are working with the Russian sympathizer. This will have very dire implications, such inconsistencies. And I remember seeing an article by Jaindi Kisero. I think that was I think Nation editor, columnist, if I'm not wrong. And he raised the red flag. I analyzed that analysis here. I analyzed that here. He actually raised the red flag. I think, yeah, that is the video you're seeing there. He raised the red flag saying that we are treading dangerous route by trading with countries that are sanctioned by our good friends, the US. Actually, Belarus was actually sanctioned by the Fed, and I think also Germany. So we are not consistent. And to some extent, we can lose the track, we can lose the favor at the international scene. Secondly, it is right, and of course it is true, that William Ruto is a man of the West. He expresses dalliance with the West. In 8 months, I think he has gone to, just immediately after he was sworn in, the first international trip was the United Nations General Assembly in the US. And after that, he was again in US in December. I think he has gone to US twice. He has gone to Germany and also UK. Twice, US twice, UK twice, Germany once. Just recently, he went to Germany, then Belgium. I don't know whether he's made a trip to the east, to the China. Not once. There's only a trip to Dubai, which the Dubai trip also was capturing the Belarus deal. So we've had a bit of an over-dependence on the West with a little conscious of the East. And remember, you've had a past. I want to agree that there are also very good loan facilities from Europe, from the East. And there is nothing wrong by showing that you favor them. But you need to play it right so that you also don't destroy your history with the West. I'm talking about something is bit not working out because what I understand, if government knew they were going to pay 150 billion in terms of maturing loans, then the most decent thing they were to do is to dangle with restructure. Restructure so that at that moment, I know in April we are going to get a lot of money. There are a lot of taxes that are collected, even the corporate tax is collected now, quite a number of them. Then we will still restructure and say adjusted by probably a month. I know these are very serious treaties, but we would have a way of handling them. But because of our independence of the West, we've gotten ourselves into this. And I want to link this with my third point. Kenya Kwanza at the campaign trail demonized China projects. Actually, we demonized a lot of these China projects. And when we demonized these projects, the SGR, it was used as a political tool. But then I know even those who are experts in the foreign affairs issues will understand that the kind of hostility against the SGR at the campaign trail was a campaign tool to woo the masses. So, of course, deliberately we had to revert back operations to Mombasa. It somehow affected operations to some extent, but we did not stop there. Just recently, last month, we had a very heated hostility against China Square, an establishment, or rather a business entity that was established by a Chinese guy. So we've gotten ourselves into this, and we are showing, and I remember us saying, even raising that flag and saying that this could be a Chinese thing, but aren't we showing the rest of the world that we don't welcome investors back in the country? We have inconsistencies. We have a bit of laxity in terms of what we have collected as revenue, and even our shilling has been at free fall. One of the challenges we've had is the influx of investments in the country has gone down. The traffic of those investing in Kenya has gone down. Could be we are showing a lot of hostility, and our foreign investment policy is not favoring the locals here. I was just reading about a tax, and I'm telling you, with the taxation, with the unpredictable taxation regimes, I can tell you we are not into a good space. There is one problem. There is one thing that I think we need to solve, and I want to finish by saying, for William Ruto to solve these problems, balance so that we can have more exports than imports. When we import, we are really splashing the Kenya shilling away when we import. But when we export, we get the foreign currency here. One works. We've had that challenge for quite some time, and it's part of our problem. I don't know whether it's about the value addition to our products, or do we have water exactly? Do we have enough to be exported? We need to look at it critically, whether it's on tea, coffee, and other products, and the flowers that we export. We need to work on a modality, or rather on a strategy that can help us have more exports than imports. On that, we cease to be more of a consumer economy, but also a producer economy. That will really help us to change the tide. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what you think. What's your take on China-American war over the Kenyan issue?